episode of How to Really Run a City, our deep dive into the mystery and mastery of big city leadership. Brought to you by the generous folks at Diversified Search, the nation's only female-founded and female-led executive search firm, and our friends at Comcast NBC Universal. I'm Larry Platt of the Philadelphia Citizen, a nonprofit, nonpartisan media organization that seeks to reinvigorate democracy in the American city where it was born. Check us out at thephiladelphiacitizen.org. How to Really Run a City features two accomplished practitioners of the art of urban changemaking, former two-term Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed and former two-term Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter. If you've been with us in the past, you know the drill. If you're frustrated by the bickering and finger-pointing coming out of Washington, D.C., this podcast is for you. It's a testament to the notion that there really are three political parties in America: Democrats, Republicans, and mayors, who have no choice but to actually get things done on the ground.
Kasim, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing terrific. How are you doing, Mayor?
All right, man. You got his pullover and his hoodie on. You get ready to go do something.
Get ready to go get on the plane and go to sleep.
There you go. Where you
headed
going?
out to San Francisco for Willie's birthday.
That's coming up. This is the weekend.
He's having a full schedule of events, my brother, and they are fabulous. He starts Friday and rolls through Sunday brunch.
Jesus, how old is he now?
90.
Damn.
Yeah, he called me and told me he wants to go to the Usher concert.
Are you going to be able to keep up with him? That's the question.
I don't know, but once I get tickets, my job is done. You know,
there you go.
First row center set. He's got this that his young girlfriend that wants to see Usher, so he said he's gonna make that happen.
So, how old is the girlfriend? How old is the girlfriend?
You know, I don't know. I just know they're in love.
Hey Larry,
I love love. That's all I know.
Kasim is from the George McBundy School diplomacy, right? He give you a little bit of answer, make you feel good. You still don't know. You still don't actually know what the answer is, but you feel good about it.
You have the structural facts in there. The structural facts are there's going to be a celebration going on from Friday through Sunday brunch. and
is that the structural facts?
Not alternative facts. The structural facts. They're true.
Let's go back to that for one moment. Like, when that lady, what is it?
Kelly Conway. Kellyanne Conway, yeah.
Yeah.
When she said that, there are alternative facts.
Yes.
I said, what does that mean?
Yeah. Set America on the path that we're on towards foolishness.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're arguing about crowd size.
Yeah.
At the inauguration. Who had more people? I was like, but there are photos.
Yes. You forget those photos, dadgummit.
There are photos. We know how many people there. What are you talking about?
I know we're laughing about it, but it totally predicted election denial, right?
Yeah,
it's like
yes.
that. We thought
that was the beginning.
Yeah,
it's like 2 days in, and we can go with COVID, we go with vaccines, we go with testing, everything they did.
It was the bread service for the meal, baby.
That's right. That's right.
Everything they did is centered on 2 days in. And that lady started talking about alternative facts and literally created new lingo.
Right. And a new way to, and by putting that out there, it made it like everything's debatable. Every fact is on the table.
Everything.
Yeah.
Maybe water's H2O. I don't know. But, I could tell you something else. 2 plus 2?
Exactly.
What was 4?
I don't know. Could be 4.5.
Right. Before we get our guest, Dallas Fort Worth Mayor Mattie Parker, there's something important this week that I wanted to bring up with you guys. We are taping this days after the Baltimore Bridge collapse, and I think we should give a shout out to Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott,
Scott,
who handled
and
this,
Governor Moore.
and Governor Moore. But I saw Mayor Scott go on. Actually, he like went on Fox News and other news outlets, and he handled this crazy racist reaction uh, uh, to the tragedy with moral righteousness. He's been called a DEI mayor and blamed for this thing in some unconscionable way.
DEI is just a new word for nigga.
Well, it's what he said. He said on TV. He said his critics don't have the courage to use the N-word.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if you guys saw that, and also talk to you about what do you decide to say in response to in times of crisis, in response to that kind of criticism.
And now you go first.
Well, first of all, first let's acknowledge the tragedy of what appears to be six souls lost. People doing work. I just saw a story. I guess the wife of one of the workers. They were on the bridge. They were on break, or maybe in the car, and suddenly, I mean, that video is stunning. I mean, somebody said to me, "That looks like a what's the guy? One of these filmmakers that makes fantastical things." I mean, it literally looked like an erector set or a movie set thing. These the bridge comes down. Of course, it doesn't really happen in real life. And I mean, the rapidity. The quickness. Which with that entire structure built in, I think, 47 years ago, just top. And so to say anything other than the tragedy that it is, without finger pointing or blame, who knows? I mean, I saw another story about like 3 ships have crashed in recent times, and quite frankly, I'm starting to wonder whether there is some kind of hijacking of internet or systems or hacking or something. I mean, maybe it's not coincident, maybe it's not. But to your question, Larry, you cannot countenance bullshit in this kind of situation. You have to call things for what they are. And, for somebody to try to use this tragedy to advance any kind of political agenda is, it's just so offensive. And so I give credit to Mayor Scott for pushing back hard, saying what needs to be said. And, I'm sure he probably wanted to say more. Because you just get so filled up when you have this kind of thing going on, because you got 9 million thoughts going through your head. So I think he did the right thing. He called it for what it was, and you have to push back. This. Sometimes you just can't be nice with people.
Yeah, I also think in moments like that both he and Governor Moore did the right thing by focusing on the work. Once you deal with the loss of souls and the tragedy related to the loss of souls, everybody wants to know that you're out there giving them your best for them.
Yep.
And that is the moment when government is most needed and most valuable, and it does things that only a government can do. And it's the time when, if you feel like you don't need government 97% of the time, 95% of the time, government is for that 5%, for that 2.5%. And what made me observe their behavior in a positive way was they were doing the work. And that's what I think people want to see from their leadership at moments like this.
Yeah.
And so, it's the time for you to show up.
Yeah. This is mayoral. It's governor. It's president. This is the, Larry, you have my thing about the rules and I think I tell about the team. And I talked to Governor Moore last night, and I said, you don't pick the big moments. The big moments pick you. And this is their moment. This is maybe not in numbers. But for Maryland right now, this is their 9/11. No one ever thought that somebody would fly two airplanes into the World Trade Center and create that kind of destruction. Nearly 3,000 people died. No one could imagine that a barge would run into a bridge and knock it down. That's 47 years old that people have grown up with all their lives, and you would lose people.
Yeah.
This is that moment for them.
Yeah, and
this is when people expect you to show up, acknowledge the loss, but also the General Assembly in Maryland obviously already talking about how are we going to support the 15,000 workers who are connected to that industry, disruption, to transit, trucking, all of that, and this is what we're built for.
Yeah, but the other side is it's also going to show Democrat leadership working well between the mayor, the governor, and the president's administration. I think President Biden was meeting with Secretary Buttigieg, a former mayor, today. And I think that they're going to use extraordinary measures to get that bridge up and open.
Right.
And I think that it's going to be a can-do attitude, and I think that bridge is going to be done in a first-rate fashion, much faster than people typically believe.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a powerful message of what can happen when you choose cooperation over conflict.
Right. We saw the same thing in Pennsylvania early in Governor Shapiro's, out of nowhere, a truck maybe traveling too fast, whatever, careens into the wall of part of overpass, the 995, bursts into flames, burns up the bridge. The initial report was it was going to take 3 months. There were vehicles traveling over that same area about 3 to 4 weeks later. Because of extraordinary, as Larry said again, extraordinary cooperation. Governor, President, Department of Transportation, all of those entities, and which goes to the larger point, which we now see playing out in the Congress. The Speaker of the House, I don't know him, I've only read about him, literally tries to do the right thing, as the previous Speaker did, to make sure that we don't run out of money and shut the government down. And what did the Republicans do? The next day, try to take him out. Like they took out the previous one. I mean, like...
Yeah.
The government doesn't need to shut down. Why would we shut the government down? Right? These people don't care. They don't care about people.
Led by Mayor Reed's fellow Georgian, what's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene. I can't believe the two of you
are. He's going to claim him.
I don't think he's going to.
I am not going to claim her.
I am not.
I can't believe the two of you share the same.
She isn't anywhere from near Atlanta. You know,
he's happy about it.
But Mayor Nutter, you mentioned what happened here in Pennsylvania. It also involved the Governor Shapiro pushing back against his own bureaucracy and challenging them to find a way to do that temporary hold, using a local company and that was a interesting leadership inflection point, right?
Absolutely.
Did you, in both of your experiences as chief executives, did you have to do that? Did you have to push back against your own people to have more of a sense of urgency in matters of crisis?
Yeah, we had the I-85 bridge collapse where a homeless person was living under a bridge, caused a fire that caused our main intersection to burn and collapse. And so we had to take extraordinary measures with cooperation across multiple levels. We had a terrific partner in Governor Nathan Deal, and we were able to get the I-85 corridor up and running. And so that's why I have some sense of what the mayor and the governor are going through. But the fact of the matter is they have a terrific president in Joe Biden who fundamentally understands infrastructure and how to make things go. And he is built for moments like this.
No question.
First of all, he's got a heart as big as Texas or any place more pleasant, but he's got a massive heart.
Yeah.
He's been through tragedy, and so he's just the right president for this moment, and he's going to make sure.
Yeah.
There's no feeling when you're a mayor like having a president of the United States that calls you and tells you you're going to have everything you need and mean it.
Larry, you remember the Amtrak 188 derailment, right?
Right.
So Amtrak is, that's federal, but it happened here. President Obama called me directly and said, right to Mayor Reed's point, whatever you need, we're here for you, Michael.
And everybody remembers the picture with Chris Christie.
Mm-hmm.
You can say whatever you want. When the president landed, when New Jersey was facing that tragedy and the flood, right? No matter what Chris Christie felt,
he stood right there.
He stood right there.
Right.
Because he knew if you really want to help your people, this is where you help your people.
Right. Yeah. You got to put all that other stuff to the side when it comes to tragedy or some extraordinary circumstance. There's no time. There's no time for politics, and quite frankly, the public will not stand for that. They don't expect us. They have no expectation that we like each other, that we're gonna get along, that we're singing campfire songs, that we're going out to dinner, anything. When the shit hits the fan, they expect you to step up, talk to whoever you need to talk to, and take care of business.
And Mayor Nutter, I think I remember on that Amtrak tragedy, I think you were on site that night. It happened real late at night, if I recall. And
it happened at 9:30. I was there at 9:45. I was having
say that again.
Yeah,
say that.
It happened at 9:30.
That's what
I was there at 9:45.
That's why you tune in, ladies.
Lights and siren. Right? I got a call. Samantha, I'll never forget. Samantha Phillips, my emergency management director, called me and said, we have a train derailment. I don't have any details. I'm going to get more information. I'm going to call you back. They called back. She said, it's bad. We need you here. Up, out, in the car, lights and sirens, blazing up on the north side of the city. On the scene. When I arrived, there were people who were on that train, were walking off the train, walking past me. Site was a disaster, chaos and confusion. Nailed that thing down, created the perimeter, push the press back, get the people out. The citizens were running out of their houses with water, towels, welcome people into their home because there was a tragedy. Now, Amtrak is not technically my responsibility, but it happened in my city. And so I'm now responsible and I'm in charge. And that's what you do. Everybody, all hands on deck immediately. I'm not asking people, what's your voter registration card? We're here to help and support. Sadly, unfortunately, as you know, we lost 8 souls in that tragedy. But you do what you need to do. You talk to who you need to talk to. Everybody's got to be focused. Yeah, these tragedies, man. I mean, these circumstances, these things. Mayor Reed knows this. It's never an if with us.
Yeah,
it's only when. Only when. In the meantime, you do all the other stuff.
Mayor Reed, when that bridge collapsed, do you remember getting the call and were you right on?
Of course. I was at the state capitol. And so I was working on a matter, and Torres, who ran my communication shop, called me. And fortunately,
who is one of the MVPs behind this podcast? Let's just give her props.
She's the MVP for so much.
Yeah. He wouldn't even be on here without her.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's no question. But the governor was downstairs, and so I went to his office, and we started working right then. That's literally what happened. I was on the second floor standing outside of the Senate doors. She called me, told me to turn on the TV. You know, there are TVs all through the Capitol. You could see what was happening on TV live. And Governor Deal was on the second floor, and I went to the governor's office. And we started working from that moment. And we did a similar thing. We got the bridge up, open, and operational in definitely record time for Georgia.
See, and what I really want people to take away from this is Governor Deal was a Republican.
Yeah, he was a rock rib Republican, but he had a love for public service, and he was a good man. He is a good man.
And you got a lot done with him, and that's the value of now.
Mayor Reed was one. The models across the country. I mean, the whole, Democrat Republican thing, or city in the red, in the red state. At least at the time, Mayor Reed was a model. People looked at his leadership and his style of working and doing business for others that found themselves in that situation. I went in and out of that. I had 3 governors during my time. I had the tail end of Ed Rendell.
Mm-hmm.
I had Tom Corbett for 4, and then he lost to Tom Wolf, and I had the beginning of Tom Wolf. I mean, other than the education kind of debacle during the Corbett administration, I talked to him. I worked with him, when I needed to. He was respectful, and we got a couple things done. But you got to come correct. And you got to come to people with sincerity. And sometimes you literally do have to remind people in subtle ways, why they got into public service in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, the woman of the hour has joined us.
Why are you here? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Well, guys, last time we got together, we talked with Della Clark and JP Morgan Chase's Michelle Lawrence about investing in Black and brown entrepreneurial growth in cities. And that's such a nice transition to today's conversation, because we have with us the mayor of the fastest growing city in the nation. She's also at, I believe, 40, one of the nation's youngest mayors. And like Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt, who we spoke with last year, she's a Republican who governs by prioritizing what we were just talking about, bipartisan problem solving. Mayor Mattie Parker was reelected last year with 70% of the vote. Mayor Parker, welcome to How to Really Run a City.
Thank you, gentlemen. Nice to see you.
Hi, Mayor Parker. Congratulations on that win.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
70 is a good number.
I'll take it, right? Especially in this day and age in politics.
Whether it's electoral or age. 70 is a good number.
All of the above.
So, Mayor Parker, let's begin with growth. Your city is boomtown. But you've been very strategic about managing that growth. Can you talk to us about how you're harnessing growth and thinking about it strategically?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of level set for the city of Fort Worth, we are a city manager form of government. So I consider myself chair of the board, right? And my direction on behalf of voters is to make sure our policy and vision is sound. And what a blessing it is to be boomtown and have high growth, because we understand a lot of large American cities that are losing residents have a different problem set that they're grappling with. But with growth comes immense responsibility, and there are a variety of different things that many of you have had to deal with in your own communities when it comes to transportation infrastructure and what the education system looks like, and do you have the right water utility? But at a high level, I think it's important in our city, at least, that we want to remain Fort Worth. I mean, you may not have ever visited our city. We're almost 1 million people, but it feels like a small town here. People are incredibly kind and generous. They want you to be successful. They want you to build your business and grow your family here. And we need to maintain that front porch type of city attitude, because I think it sets us apart from a lot of large communities. And as you also know, across the United States, especially post-COVID, Americans are voting with their feet. There's a tremendous amount of domestic migration as families consider where they want their roots to be. And Fort Worth has been the benefit of that. When I think about city leadership, I'm very proud we don't have to run in a partisan way in Fort Worth, because I think, especially at a local level, what makes a city run well are just common sense policies. And keeping partisanship and ideology out of it is always the best way to do things. And working alongside my council members, very diverse council, different perspectives, different political persuasions and backgrounds, to make sure we're making decisions on behalf of all residents is sort of the mentality we maintain. And the last thing I'll say is that growth for growth's sake is not going to serve our residents. I've said that numerous times over. And you can imagine those that are from Fort Worth and have been here a long time and remember the city when it was just 500,000 people, they get a little grouchy when you talk about how many people are here, and they want to make sure their city looks the same. And they demand, and should, the level of city service that we've always had here in the community. And that set us apart from a lot of other large cities.
Before we get serious, is South Fork in Fort Worth from Dallas?
No. JR does not live here.
Okay. All right. I needed to check.
No Ewing family. That's too funny. But honestly, we have our own Ewings here.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do the show just in a different way. Yeah, and actually, Taylor Sheridan is filming his new Landman show right here in Fort Worth with Billy Bob Thornton. So that's the new Dallas, right? That's the new show to watch.
I've heard he has real affection for your community.
He does. He's from here. It helps a little bit.
That's similar to what you did, Mayor Reed, with Tyler Perry, right?
It is. It can go a long way. Generate a lot of good paying jobs across the spectrum.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great point. I mean, what y'all have accomplished in Atlanta is tremendous. And we are using some of that playbook here in the city of Fort Worth. You know, it needs to be different, of course, for our community in Texas, but we chased Georgia for a while there at what it looked like for film incentives and production. And we worked really hard this last session. So kudos to you and what you accomplished there, because I think other cities can really demonstrate economic development value out of the arts and getting them out of Los Angeles. They want to get out of Los Angeles. You just got to give them a place to call home.
You do. Yeah. And when I tell everybody about the motion picture and film space, really, it's just the jobs that you have already being paid more. If you've got a driver that makes $10 an hour, if they drive on a movie set, they make 40. If you've got a security guard that makes $20, they make 40 or 50 on a movie set. If you've got a hairdresser that makes $100, she makes 300 on a movie set. Yeah. So what it does is it contributes to the economy in a dynamic way without massive reskilling. It allows the people to use the skills that they have. So I read about your relationship, and I think it's exciting what you have going on.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Mayor Nutter, did you want to jump in?
Sure. Mayor, I guess I would just ask, so you all run, is it 3 2-year terms you can do?
We have no term limits, but we run every 2 years in the city of Fort Worth.
Okay. And I mean, just a little bit of a layup question. How's it going? I know you were on the city council, right? You were chief of staff. Yeah. But I mean, what's happening down there?
Well, honestly,
it's the best job in politics. There's no question.
It is, and that's the truth. I think that it's an interesting time to be in elected office right now, when across the country people appear to be at each other's throats, and the extremism is at a height level that probably in my generation I certainly haven't seen. Y'all may have different perspectives, but I'm still optimistic because I see what's best in people, and it is the best job in politics. It's just like any job. All days are different. No 2 days are the same, certainly as mayor. And you can't do it by yourself. You have to have a family that's supportive. And my husband and I have young children. Our youngest is 7. Then we have a 13-year-old and a 22-year-old. My husband has a busy job. Family first, right? And then just our management team and the city working together to get it done. But overall, we're in a good place in Fort Worth. Believe me, there are some days I question my sanity, Mayor, because you think I did this to myself. I raised my hand, right?
Reed, what you have a commentary on that? What do you say about us?
We're all damaged in some way.
We're all damaged.
We got to get a psychiatrist on as a guest one of these episodes.
Get my head checked.
Why would you do this job?
Yes.
Every now and then my staff would, I'd be complaining about whatever I'm complaining about on any given day. And they would just stop. They said, you ran for this, right?
Yeah.
You wanted this job.
You weren't held at gunpoint. You wanted
it back. You ran again.
Yeah, my staff went further. They would hit me with, this was your dream. Like, didn't you say you wanted to be mayor since you were 13?
You're living the dream.
Well, and Mayor Parker, I think I read that when you were first elected, On election night, when you were told you won, I hope jokingly said, "Can I get a recount?" Is that true?
Oh gosh, it's kind of a blur. Maybe so. I think I was joking. Well, candidly, we had to go through 2 rounds. I don't know if anybody else had to do that. We had a runoff. So first round was 10 people because my predecessor was the woman I worked for, remarkable 10-year mayor in Fort Worth, Betsy Price. And so it was a big field, right? So getting through that first election in May and then again in June, you're running the gauntlet for sure. But I do feel like you mentioned best job in politics. It is, even on the hardest days, you feel so appreciative of the opportunity to serve people. And if you love the city that you're serving, which all of us do, you get to see every aspect of it. And sometimes I wish you could offer that window to more people that don't get that opportunity. Good, bad, and ugly, right? But the perspective you have on your community is huge.
Well, hey, Larry, I don't know if I said this publicly, but in 2009, after, we're full-blown recession, everything has gone haywire. Everybody's mad. We have the unique ability to piss everybody off. And one day I did say to my team, I said, can somebody go back and check those election results? Did I actually win?
Mm-hmm. I hand it to number 2.
Right. We need to check
so, Mayor Parker, would you give our listeners a deep dive on what you did in public safety, how you reimagined it, what decisions you made about how it was going to be different in Fort Worth?
So I think my first bedrock philosophy about public safety is twofold. Number one is you listen to the professionals that are doing the job and understand the resources that they need. And furthermore, you understand that we should all be pro-police and pro-community at the exact same time. I was elected just after the summer of 2020, amazing civil unrest across the country, and the lowest morale we'd seen in the United States for police officers. And it's still something big cities are grappling with, recruitment and retention of officers. I said this over and over again when I was running, and I think it's a big reason why I won, is that we have far too long asked our police officers, at least in the last 2 decades, to be all things to all people all of the time. And that's unacceptable. There are so many things that contribute to crime in our cities that have nothing to do with policing. They have to do with the degradation of neighborhoods, an education system that's broken, a lack of investment. And we have to come alongside our public safety departments to help serve them differently. My first mention about trusting the professionals, it's no different. If you go to the doctor and your doctor says you need surgery on your heart, you don't immediately start second guessing. You believe in the professionals. And so in Fort Worth, we first of all have an amazing police chief in Neil Noakes, a career Fort Worth police officer that became our chief just before I became mayor, a friend of mine for years. He has made sure to appoint an excellent command staff that is prepared for the jobs that they're in. And they are focused on the community and the wellness of Fort Worth residents and their department. And this is incredibly hard work. But I'm proud to tell you, just this last budget cycle, I mentioned my council that are all diverse perspectives. Some of them have been the toughest critics of police at some times or another. But we unanimously voted for a historic number of officers added to this last cycle, 65 officers, along with the resources that they deserved. We're also doing really important work. Just yesterday, we had an announcement event with a local nonprofit that really is more nationally focused now, called American Warrior Association, focused on the wellness and resiliency of first responders, military, including Fort Worth PD and fire. Because I mentioned the all things to all people problem for police is if they're not well mentally, they cannot be expected to go out in the community and be their best selves. And think about the trauma and the things that our officers see day in and day out, and they're just expected to shove it down. That's terribly unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And the country's mental health resources and safety net system, we all know, is broken. But as mayor and as city leaders, we have a responsibility to create the safety net that our first responders deserve. So that's important. And the last thing that's hard for different communities, Fort Worth is a proud back the blue city. But we've been able to stay that way because our department has come alongside communities that have had major issues with police. They've admitted when they've been wrong. They've changed the way they police in community. They've used technology in a way that's less intrusive. All those things are helping. And we also have an office of the police monitor's office that does an excellent job that comes alongside our police department to also create some neutrality. And I think all those things are the recipe. We've still got ways to go, but we hope to be fully staffed with 4th PD by 2026. And I don't think many large cities have that goal that's achievable right now because retention and recruitment is such a problem.
Mayor, I want to weigh in.
No, go ahead. No,
yeah,
go ahead.
I just, I'm listening to you. Hopefully, any of your constituents will get upset by this statement. Obviously, you know that Mayor Reed and I are
Mayor Nutter, if you could speak up a little bit, we're getting a little.
There's a lot of noise in the background. I was saying, hopefully, first and foremost, none of your constituents, supporters will get upset by this statement. Obviously, you know that Mayor Reed and I are both Democrats, but I'd say we're from the governing party, governing section of the Democratic Party. But listening to you, I mean, but for it being announced by Larry that you're a Republican, I mean, you're saying things that any one of us would say.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say to you, as the great late mayor of New York, LaGuardia said, there's no Democrat or Republican way of sweeping the street. I mean, you're just laying out some common sense points and ideas, and I guess, and you're a younger mayor in the pantheon of mayors and how we end up assuming office. So I just want to ask you, how did that, where does that come from?
Well, I think you mentioned it well. It is just common sense. These are not, I'm a policy wonk. I was a staffer for my whole career, licensed attorney. I worked at all levels of government. I want things to function. And I also, you mentioned my age and my generation. I am so sick of what I'm seeing nationally and statewide because we are dividing people when there's nothing to be divisive about. I do think 15 to 20% of the country loves the extremism. They're feeding it, and they're the ones running the primary systems and network television and all the things. But 80% of Americans, they want to work together. And I always, when I speak to private sector folks, it's fascinating. I'm like, you don't get to act like that in your line of business. You don't get to tell your neighbor you're not going to talk to them for a year. You know what? We're just not going to pass a budget for 3 years. How's that sound? And I think that I hope that my generation of leadership that is coming into, whether it's business or private sector nonprofit, is fed up enough. They're willing to speak up. The other thing I would tell you, Mayor Nutter, that I have at my disposal, what's beautiful is I don't care. I don't need this job, right? I do not care about the next position. I have no aspiration. I want to live in Fort Worth and raise my family. And if it costs me my job to be common sense, great. But I think it actually will reward our city by keeping us on the right track. And frankly, admitting when conservative policies don't work or when they're right, fighting for them, right? And I do think for the future of the United States, when it comes to public safety, we desperately need to set politics aside. I'll give you a great example. Texas is known for sort of struggling with what our gun laws should be. I'll just put it like that. I don't have to politicize it. And at times you'll have the Chiefs Association speak up against a bill that is perceived as pro-gun owner, right? And I think we just need to pause and ask ourselves, when you have the professionals, again, warning you about what they're seeing in the streets of their cities, let's listen to the professionals as best we can.
By the way, you mentioned, I just want our listeners to know that when it comes to expanding Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, which in Texas Republicans have staunchly resisted, you've been an advocate for that. And you've also come to the defense of transgender children and their families amid the state's push to label some parents of, this is amazing, some parents of transgender youth as child abusers. Again, I think, are those examples of what you're talking about when you talk about your common sense approach? But
furthermore, I'm so fortunate. These are deeply personal issues to me. I was a Medicaid kid in Texas. My mom signed us up for CHIP. And honestly, in this current program in Texas, my family wouldn't have qualified. It's too complicated to get you to that result, but my mom would have no health insurance, right? And we just now went to 12 months postpartum for Medicaid in Texas. That's a win. It's incredibly complicated, but I believe strongly that, as we know, the number one reason for bankruptcy in this country is not for bad financial decisions because of medical debt. And I think we have to grapple with that. And Texas has struggled with that politically. I'll leave that aside. It's personal to me. And on the transgender issue, at the time, Texas was really considering how to penalize parents. My eldest daughter is adopted. We were part of the foster care system that's very messy. It's very bogged down. You have families going through the cracks. And all I could think about was, you're going to create a nightmare by focusing on other families that are already living in a really difficult circumstance with children that are struggling. And then you're also going to compound the problem with our foster care system. So again, it's just common sense. It's not to over politicize. And sometimes that gets taken out of context of what you're pro or against. It's just, no, pause and understand the systems that are already broken, and you're going to make them worse.
Wow. I tell you, your story is so compelling. I mean, so refreshing. I'm glad we had this conversation today. Tell me how in the world you're going to get to 10,000 acres of expanded green space in Fort Worth.
Well, we're 350 square miles, Mayor. And so lucky for us, there's lots of land available.
Yes.
I don't know what the situation was like in Atlanta, but man, when you're growing fast, you get kind of freaked out because you're losing land quickly.
Yes.
We're losing about 50 acres per week in Fort Worth. And I joked at my State of the City last year. My mom's favorite singer is Joni Mitchell. And the song referring to Paving Paradise and Yellow Taxi. And yes. I told my residents, I'm like, that's what we're doing here. We got to stop it. We got to pause it. And we're only about half developed in the city of Fort Worth. So that's our goal, 10,000 acres over 5 years to make sure we're saving green space, open space for our residents. And we've got this new private sector model, good-natured, set up to help private sector partners of philanthropy also come alongside our Parks Department. So I'm really optimistic. It's in a short period of time, because of great leaders in our community, we're seeing the right partnerships pop up to make sure we don't pave paradise in Fort Worth, and it still maintains its natural landscape and integrity that we're also proud of.
Yeah, we call ourselves a city in a forest.
Ooh, so I like that.
If you ever visit Atlanta and when you're in your plane, you look out, the city just emerged, but it's surrounded by green, and we have been fighting and continue to fight that same battle. That's why I'm interested in your view on.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because you're right. It is continual, right? And when we started this initiative, I wanted it to be something that the next mayor, no matter who they are, would keep going, because you need it to be continual over decades to protect the work that we're doing. So Atlanta is a good model, and your tree canopy is beautiful, and something that our urban forestry department has really looked to as a different area of the country, but it's still something to aspire to.
Yeah, our city is interesting because we so much of the wealth in our city was created by real estate developers. Mm-hmm. So that push and pull around protecting the tree canopy and the historic nature of how the city really emerged and grew to be a prominent American city. It's always interesting.
I feel like you've not lived as mayor until you've had at least one resident try to chain themselves to a tree over development.
There you go.
Mayor, at 70% in your last election, sounds like you're gonna be around for a while. So, what are your what's the 1, 2, 3 top priorities at the moment as you move forward for however long you're going to be there? What are you trying to get done?
Well, I think number one is maintaining our focus as one of those, clean and safe, livable cities in the country, and keeping our eye on the ball. You can't be complacent. You have to focus on the policies that are working. We've already talked about good-natured and green space, maintaining that goal and really pushing ourselves, because now is the time. We can't get that land back, and we need to make sure it's here for future generations, for my kids and my grandchildren, importantly. And then lastly, it's external facing initiatives across the city that I know impact us directly. My passion and my heart is really around education. And much like other urban areas, our students are not performing where they need to be. Our student outcomes are abysmal, especially for Black and Hispanic children. That's the future generation of Fort Worth. We're very proud of our diversity. How are you educating and making sure you can't export poverty? And the only way out of poverty is education and opportunity. And so we're doing a variety of things in partnership with our school districts and all their other educators, all the way to higher education in Fort Worth through a mayor's council that's really effective. And those are things I candidly can't control, but I can use the mayor's bully pulpit, which has been really powerful to get business to wake up and pay attention differently. Stop squawking about what's wrong in schools and do something about it, right? And quit saying that's their responsibility. Those are those kids. They're our kids. I say that all the time in Fort Worth. And you should equally care about the kids in a different zip code as you do about your own. because your city really depends on their ability to lead us in the future. And then this theme of growth is hard to keep up with. Infrastructure is always a top priority. And if you were from here, I'd tell you about all the highways and things we're working on. But that is something that continues to be a top priority for the city of Fort Worth.
Eric, I want to at a kind of personal level, because the mayor mentioned earlier about her, certainly her husband, but also her kids. And my wife said something to me the other night, having a conversation. Out of nowhere, she kind of said, you know, I can't believe that you were the mayor of Philadelphia. And then she immediately came back and said that we were the mayor of Philadelphia. So, and you have young kids. So, like, nothing keeps us more humble than our family. So what do your kids think about you being the mayor?
You know, it's different perspectives because of their ages, right? You know, my 13-year-old doesn't really have social media yet, but I'm sure that is coming. And I'll worry. That's a whole nother battle to worry about, right? What they see online and what they may see about their mom. But if you met him, he's such a little man, and he could work the room and shake hands. And great story about him. He went with me to a dinner that my husband couldn't attend. And it was the night actually of one of the final Ranger games. And the game's on kind of the background. And this gentleman's being really friendly to Gray and says, "Young man, did you think you might be interested in politics?" And he looks at Lee and he looks at him straight face. He goes, "Sir, we're sitting here at this rubber chicken dinner and the Rangers are playing. Absolutely not." And so that might be encapsulating what he thinks about it all. And my 7-year-old is too young, right? I often get the questions, how do you do it? But if you talk to any working mother, any working parent, but women especially that carry this mom guilt and the burden and all the activities and the Rolodex of information that's in my head, did my kid get the spelling list? What uniform are they in? Things come up every day, and some days you feel like you're owning it and you got it rocking along, and other days you don't. And that's just part of life. And I have an awesome husband who we've been married now for 15 years. I do not think this is what we anticipated to be doing in this stage, but he's incredibly supportive and in many ways a better extrovert than I am. So I need him. Y'all been there before that. You need your spouse or someone along with you as your wingman to get you in and out of conversations as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And, we do it as a family, that's for sure.
You're not an extrovert?
That's great.
I'm your classic introvert extrovert. I have a turnoff point, and I like to withdraw from the world and read and not talk.
I would never guessed
Oh, yeah.
Because you are so forward, straight, engaged, involved. I mean, you're like a ball of fire.
Well, you're kind. Thank you. But yes, I have a turnoff match. That's for sure.
Well, hey guys, I always say this, usually take the measure of the guest after they leave, but I am on Team Parker. I'm a convert, and I'm bummed to hear that she's. And in fact, I did read your name was floated to run for Congress, and you said something like, I'm paraphrasing, but something like, not only no, but hell no.
Yeah, no, thank you. And no interest in that at all. No, I have a good friend running for Congress. I hope he's successful. I don't know why anybody would want to go do that to themselves. And back to being in Fort Worth, I don't want to be away from my family any more than I already am. So I'm not getting on a plane to DC every day. But I'm pretty happy where I am right now. And I feel like I'm making a difference, and that's important to me.
I had one other you were talking about education before, and am I right? Is there a curriculum in the community college that with high school students that gives them some entrepreneurship training?
Yes, there is. I think I would point to specifically our community college here, Tarrant County Community College.
Yeah.
All of our communities have, that's like the best kept secret, right? Our community colleges that are helping educate future gen. But they do a phenomenal job partnering with our area districts and providing a pathway to an associate's degree while they're in high school. So these kids run circles around us. They graduate with a high school diploma at the same time they graduate from college. And entrepreneurship is a huge piece of that, Lawrence, that allows them that pathway. But furthermore, we're also doing more work with accelerators and bringing them to Fort Worth, because our students deserve to see themselves as entrepreneurs, whether they're 16 or 60. It doesn't matter. And we think in high school, embedding that philosophy, basic tenets of business, and coupled with certifications and education credentials with TCC and these accelerators will pay off for us long term. And hopefully they'll build successful businesses right here in Fort Worth.
Boy, you're really speaking our language.
She also has her own podcast. called
I
Go
do.
Time.
It's Go Time.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. That's
Tell
what
us about it. Tell us
it's
about what
fun.
made you started.
I'm finding some lessons. How often do y'all record and put one out?
Once a month.
Okay, so that's good. That's respectable. I had real good ambition my first term, and I was like probably once every 2 weeks. And it's hard, as you know, to get it recorded. So my main mission with that is just to tell the story about Fort Worth, what's going on. And you can't control media and what they want to report on sometimes. So sometimes it's just like 7 minutes, be like, this is what happened at council last night. I wanted you to know about it. Listen to it if you want to. I get good feedback because people are busy and they don't want to read an article, but they'll listen to something in the car for 3 minutes on the way to kid pickup or whatever it is. So it's worked well with me. But kudos to you, because I think this is to me where I love getting my news, honestly, is through different podcasts across the country on different topics. And I think that it's a good way for elected officials to also tell their story in their own voice.
Well, that's Go Time with Mayor Mattie Parker. We want to plug it,
Thank you.
and we did listen to it. It's quite good and brief, which is cool. Unlike these guys who you can't stop them from.
Y'all got lots to say. Have y'all ever visited Fort Worth before?
Absolutely.
Okay, come back and see us. We got some new hotels you got to come see. Beautiful museums. We did a wonderful commercial. Visit Fort Worth did. I can send you a link so you have it. And the theme is the unexpected city. And Jimmy Stewart is the voiceover in the commercial. And it does tell a good story about who we are as a community. Yeah.
That's great. Well, maybe we'll broadcast live from there with Mayor Parker one day.
Bring it. I love it.
Mayor Parker, can't thank you enough, and keep up the great work. Appreciate
y'all. Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Take care, man.
Well, guys, that's another episode in the bank. Thank you both for your insightful questions, and thanks to Mayor Parker. That's it for this episode of How to Really Run a City. As always, if you have questions for the mayors, ideas you'd like to see us explore, or if you want to invite us to visit your city for an episode in conversation with your leadership, drop us a line at podcast@thephiladelphiacitizen.org. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and tell your friends about us. We really want to widen the conversation, because by 2050, something like 2/3 of the world will live in cities. As cities go, so goes the nation, so goes the world.